My name is Heidi Hernandez, and I will be introducing the movie Traces of Love. The release date of this movie is in October 26, 2006. The director of this film is Kim Dae-sung. He graduated from Chuang University with a degree in film studies. He spent almost 10 years as an assistant director to Im Kwon-taek. Some of the movies that he directed are Bungee Jumping of Their Own, Blood Rain, and The Concubine. In Traces of Love, the main characters consist of Choi Yoon-woo, who is played by Yoo Ji-taek, So Min-ju, who is played by Kim Ji-soo, Yoon Se-jin, who is played by Om Ji-won. The rest of the cast consists of Choi Jong-un, who plays Min-ju's father, and Park Seung-tae, who plays Min-ju's mother. Park Jul-min, who plays Detective Park, Chong In-ki, who plays the prosecutor, Kim Ki-chun, who plays real estate man, and Im Jong-yoon, who plays the chief prosecutor. In the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Hyun-woo, who is a law student engaged to Min-ju, who is a television director. Min-ju was portrayed as someone who deeply loved traveling and enjoyed her surroundings. Hyun-woo was a humorous person who deeply loved Min-ju. Sadly, Hyun-woo loses his fiancée Min-ju during the collapse of the Sampoong department store when he had asked her to wait for him there until he gets off work. He tried desperately to look for her but was very devastated to hear of her death. Sometime later, he has dinner with Min-ju's father where he receives a journal Min-ju made of all the places she wanted to visit for their honeymoon. Upon receiving it, he goes through all of the places. While on this journey, Hyun-woo notices Yoon Se-jin, who is also following the same journey. He becomes suspicious of Se-jin when he continues to see her wherever he goes, and when Se-jin quotes and speaks similarly to Min-ju. He then finds out that Se-jin knew Min-ju during the accident, and Min-ju had recommended her those same places. Traces of Love is based on the collapse of the Sampoong department store in 1995. This film shows the story of a man who suffers after his fiancée dies in this accident. We are shown the events that led to the accident and red flags that were present during the real accident. Some of the red flags that were shown were related to issues with the AC units and the chairman meeting. The weight of the AC unit was too overwhelming for the building. The weight was beyond the design limits. One day when they dragged them around the roof, it created too much tension and created cracks. Later on, because of the growing cracks caused by the vibration of the AC, managers decided to turn off the AC and close off the top floor. This was associated with the part where the young girl was complaining about the smell and how hot Min-ju and other shoppers felt. We also see men in suits quickly leaving the building through the front doors. That day before the collapse, those who attended the chairman meeting were aware of the building's condition but ignored it in order to keep business going. They had left the building without letting anyone know. We also see a search team going on to look for survivors right after the collapse. I became interested in learning more about the accident after seeing it pop up often, such as in a drama that I watched, the amount of times I heard Koreans mention the tragedy, and realizing it had happened on June 29. Some other things that I learned was that the man who was behind it all was Lee Joo, who at the time was the future chairman of the Sampoong Group's construction division. He had previously been a CIA agent and decided to become a businessman. An area where US soldiers used to stay was purchased by Lee Joo and was being used to build an apartment complex. Woosung Construction had already started building the 4th-floor building, but all of a sudden, Lee Joo changed the blueprint to build a department store. He ignored warnings from the workers, and when they refused to build what he wanted, he fired them and hired his own people to build the store, which was the Sampoong Group construction team. The new floor plan contained 5 floors. The columns were made smaller and placed farther apart from each other in order to maximize retail space. Those columns required 16 reinforcement bars embedded, but only contained 8, which was half of the needed strength to hold up the floors. There were 45-ton AC units that was 4 times the design limit. 2 years before the collapse, the units were dragged across the top floor due to customer complaints in the east wing about the noise. They were moved on rollers instead of with a crane, which resulted in cracks. Later, The vibration from the AC units grew those cracks. Another problem was that the fifth floor was originally designed to be an ice rink but was changed to a food court. This increased the load of the top floor. A day before the collapse, a security guard noticed a huge hole in the floor and reported the following day. That morning, there was a chairman meeting. They had all decided to keep business going until the end of the day, so they wouldn't lose revenue and shoppers wouldn't be alarmed. Upon receiving an alarming call from an employee on the top floor, those who attended the meeting left immediately afterwards without warning others. That afternoon, the department store collapsed. There was a search team going on for almost a month looking for survivors. Some survivors were living on rainwater, had injuries, and could barely speak or move when they were found. After an investigation of the cause of the collapse, Yi Jun was charged with criminal negligence and received a reduced sentence of 7.5 years on appeal. Other individuals related to the incident were charged as well. In the end, Yi Jun and Yi Han-sang offered their entire wealth as compensation to the victims' families, and Sampoong Group no longer existed. This is only a portion of the whole case of the collapse of the Sampoong department store. There were several issues that led to the collapse due to poor safety regulation and corruption. There was a lot of emotion put into the movie. It was quite emotional and moving watching the scene of the collapse. When reading about the Sampoong department store accident, I did not consider the survivors' trauma, their experiences, or how they tried to survive during the accident. I think the movie gave great detail of how people who were trapped could have been trying to survive, such as drinking rainwater, removing clothing due to the overwhelming heat, or tolerating their own injuries. The movie also made me think about survivors or loved ones of those who died who may still be traumatized from such an experience. I wonder about all of the victims who could have possibly survived if there was a better, safer, and faster way of saving people after a huge accident. By watching this movie and looking more into the disaster, I feel more educated and look forward to learning more about Korean history in the near future. Again, my name is Heidi Hernandez, and this was my project on Traces of Love.